Hey y'all, welcome back to Razzle Dazzle Life. I am so glad you're here. Today we are going to be cooking a down-home country classic. We are going to be cooking some pork neck bones. It is one of my family's favorite staple meals. We love neck bones, y'all. You got to get the pork ones. You can get the beef ones. It don't matter as long as they have a lot of meat on them. We like to smother them and cover them, cook them low and slow because that's how they fall off the bone tender. Fork tender is the key. The first thing you want to do is clean them up really, really well. Run them under some cold water. Try to get as much of that fat off as you can, much of the gristly part. Get all of that off of there. I also like to boil them for 10 minutes just to get some of that grime and grit off of them. Then dump that water out, season it up real well, and then that's when you cook them off. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse these off with some cold water first, and I'm gonna go in and hit them with some vinegar. You see how that water is already turning really mucky and grimy. You don't know what them butchers are doing back there, so go ahead and wash your meat, y'all. I don't know what your household does, but over here, we're gonna wash our meat off, okay? Even if you're just getting some of that fat off of there, or some of that gristle, some of that bone, just look at it. It's already getting grimy and gristly. Just get some of the fat off of it. Get some of that gristle off of it. What if the butcher dropped the meat on the floor? You never know what they're doing. Just get some of that out of there. You can always wash your sink out. You can always wash your hands. You can wear gloves. So that whole debate about not washing your meat, that's for the birds, because just look how dirty this water is. So not only are we gonna wash our meat, we're gonna boil these neck bones for about 10 minutes, and then we're gonna dump that water, then season them up, and that's when you really cook your neck bones. Let me show y'all that we clean our sink with a disinfectant bleach afterward. That's very important because everybody wants to talk about cross-contamination. We're gonna get rid of that, okay? We're gonna go in and we're gonna clean all that out. I just wanted to show y'all that. Alrighty, we got our neck bones in the pot. You're gonna turn your heat to medium high and then just cover the neck bones with water, enough water to cover them. And you're gonna bring these to a light boil. I'm gonna cover them with a lid. Once they come to a rapid rolling boil, I'll show you when that happens. You're gonna boil them for about 10 minutes, and this is just the first boil to get all of that nasty grime off, okay? This is something that my household does. It's important to us because we like to get all that nasty grit and dirt off. Some people just rinse them with water, vinegar, lemon, and that's sufficient for them. After this first boil, we're gonna come back and then we're gonna season it up. We're gonna add all of our peppers, our onions, all of our delicious seasonings, and that's when we boil it low and slow for a couple of hours. This first boil is just to get all of that nasty dirt and grime off. Some people don't do that. Some people just rinse it with water, vinegar, whatever you like. You do what works for your household. This is what we do for ours. This is so delicious. This is a good way to get some tender, juicy neck bones. This is all the nasty stuff that we are going to dump off and get rid of. After 10 minutes of the first boil, we're getting rid of this. Then we're gonna season up our pot. We're gonna add in our peppers and onions. Then it's time to cook it low and slow for a good 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours. Get them nice and tender. This is why it's important to cook it for a good 10 minutes for the first cook, because look at all this grime. And yes, you could easily just skim it off, but I like to just dump all this first boil out because I just don't like it. And when I add all my peppers and onions in, I want to keep that as a gravy, and I like to cook it down and let it thicken up, and I don't want this bone broth. Some people like it. Bone broth is good for you, but me personally, I just don't want it. So we're gonna dump this out, get rid of it, then we're gonna add some fresh water and we're gonna season it up. Alrighty, now we have a green bell pepper, yellow bell pepper, red bell pepper, and then I have a quarter of an onion here that we're gonna use, and I'm just going to roughly chop each of these. You don't have to be fancy with your chopping because we're just gonna put them in there with our neck bones for some added flavor. I am gonna try to keep the bell peppers in some nice big chunks though, so that they don't cook down too much. We really just want them for the flavor. One thing that people don't realize is when you put bell peppers and onions in your food, especially when you're stewing meats, it adds such a nice layer of flavor. So don't sleep on adding fresh onions and bell peppers to anything that you're cooking. Or if you can buy them frozen, they have pre-diced or pre-chopped vegetables in your frozen vegetable aisle. So we got our bell peppers cut up. Let's cut up this onion. Remove that brown layer, of course. You just want the white part of your onion. So we got it in some chunks. We're gonna add it to our bowl, like so. One more thing I'm gonna add to my neck bones, which is completely optional, are some potatoes. I'm just gonna cube up some potatoes and add them at the very end of the cooking for like the last 15 minutes. This is something my granny used to add to our neck bones, probably just to stretch the meal out and make it a complete meal. I'm gonna serve these neck bones over rice because like I said, it's gonna make a nice gravy. I'm gonna go ahead and prep these now and just set them in some water so that when they're done cooking, I can just add them to the pot. Now we'll just put a rough cube on these potatoes, cut them in half, then cut them in half again lengthwise, and then we're just gonna chop them into cubes like so. Big chunks, we want big chunks. We don't want them diced, we want them cubed like this. Then we'll put these in a bowl, and once I'm finished, I'm gonna fill the bowl up with water. That way they don't start turning brown. And you don't have to add potatoes to your neck bones, but like I said, it's a good way to stretch the meal and it adds a nice little starchy component. Now we are going to season up these neck bones because we got that first boil out the way. We have some all-purpose seasoning here, some Cajun seasoning, some chicken bouillon, some garlic powder, some onion powder, all the usual suspects. That's what we're seasoning this with. Turn your heat back to medium high. Then you're gonna add in just enough water to cover your neck bones again. Don't worry about that seasoning rinsing off because it's all gonna turn into a nice thick gravy when it's all said and done. Go ahead and add in those bell peppers and onions. All this is gonna marry together so beautifully. Once these bones cook down, the meat is gonna fall off the bone tender. Like I said, you're gonna cook this low and slow for about 2.5 hours. Once you cover it up, be sure to come back and check it every 30 to 45 minutes. Make sure that the water hasn't cooked down so much that you need to add some more cooking liquid. Okay, go ahead and cover it up and we will be back to check on it.